This podcast is sponsored by
Terraform Development is a rising engineering design and project management company located in Flagstaff, Arizona. Co-owners Eddie Kalnemtua and Stanford Lake started the company to bring economic-related projects to rural communities like the villages of the Hopi tribe. Some of the important work done by Terraform with the Hopi tribe are Tawaovi Master Plan, KUYI radio station site plan, Hopi Tribal Housing Authority residential homes, and numerous other nonprofit types projects on the Hopi tribe. Terraform can be reached at 928-864-5022 or visit their website at www.terra4orm.com. That's TERRA, the number 4, ORM.com. Also sponsored by 4X Studio is a Phoenix-based design and print communications company that specializes in brand messaging, marketing communications, and creative services for small businesses, nonprofits, tribal gaming, American Indian, and corporate clients nationwide. Their professional services include integrated brand systems, strategic design, identity illustration, print, ad campaign, assist management, packaging, and event design. 4X Studio is an American Indian owned and operated by Sean Quaney. For more information, visit 4xstudio.com. That's the number 4, xstudio.com.
You are now listening to the Carl and J-Man Save the World podcast. I'm your host, the 5-star, 5-diamond chef, J-Man. And with me is my co-host. He'll say good morning to you, whether it's midnight, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Carl.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, I know.
It's funny because he wishes everybody a good morning, but when I did ask him, are you really willing to come into the studio at 8 a.m. to do this morning show? And he said, no.
Well, the reason why I say good morning is because we release it in the morning. I mean, we release it around 8 o'clock in the morning, so.
We went over this already, Carl.
I know, but my point is still valid, so.
So how was your Thanksgiving? You're just rolling out of the Thanksgiving
Oh my God,
break.
yeah.
How much pounds did you gain?
I think I usually go walk. I walk around, and I lost about 5 pounds walking, and I was happy about myself. And then I gained about 30 pounds just in one day. So
you ate that whole turkey by yourself.
Oh my God, turkey was the best. It was the bomb.
I had a really good Thanksgiving too. We ate twice on Thanksgiving Day. Man, those turkey, mashed potatoes, and stuffing. Woo.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, it was a really good Thanksgiving. Although, it was done differently because of this COVID thing here. We didn't have a big family, but we did have just the immediate family, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that was a big difference for us too. It was just really myself, my wife, and my kids that were together that celebrated Thanksgiving. And, because of that, I was forced to eat more than I normally do.
Yeah, it was strange. So, I mean, for anybody out there that had a good Thanksgiving, congratulations. And if you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, please celebrate Thanksgiving. It's good.
It's good. And so, I think that this season 3 is going fairly well. We did come off those 2 episodes, and nobody's come and scalped us for, some of the comments that we've made in previous episodes. I'd like to thank you all for not being violent towards us or being violent towards Carl. He's still trying to move off from that high fiber cereal that he's been eating in the morning. But speaking of previous episodes, I got to go back to our last episode, and I got to make a correction. It was brought up to us by one of our listeners that we did mislabel one of the terms that we discussed when we were talking about some words that are related between the Hopi language and the Spanish language. We talked about caballo.
Yeah.
And we mistakenly identified it as cow in the last episode, but really it's horse.
Yeah. No, wait. We didn't say cow.
we said cow. I went back and I listened.
Oh, you listened to it? Oh,
I
okay.
listened to it. So Okowayo is horse.
Oh,
Or
okay.
at least how Hopis pronounce horse in Hopi. And then another, I guess, correction also too is that one of our listeners did notify us that tortillas, pekaviki, which we referenced in the last episode, is actually an indigenous dish.
Really?
Indigenous folks from down south of what we know as the border.
Yeah.
Is something that's one of their staples of delicacies that they've created, which has migrated its way up here to Hopi, which is something that we enjoy and we eat that like what your comparison was to the Indians and their naan, I believe it's what the bread is called.
Ah, okay. All right. So tortillas are actually a Native American or native dish.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that, listeners.
And I guess that's a good thing that we know that our listeners are attentive and listening to our conversations, because another one of them pointed out too that they were able to make the correlation that you're trying to make between Indians and their non-bread with Hopis and the Bekaviki bread that
Yeah.
we love so much.
Yeah.
It's just that it took you twice as long that it needed to describe what you're trying to get. That's why I got a little bit cranky and kind of, came at you the way that I did.
Hopis love to take the long road, so I'm just following my Hopi side.
And, before I forget, I'd like to do some shout outs before we get into the main part of our conversation
All right,
today.
cool.
Because, we did identify that it is Carl that sunk, a nice dollar into this production
Yes.
to create this podcast. And then, we've been thinking of our sponsors. But another shout out to some of our super fans that we really appreciate. Noel Koyahoma, Michelle Holden, Joyce Hamilton, Millard Gawanyama, and Rachel Reinhardt.
Rachel Reinhardt.
That's
the newest one.
It's the newest one.
Wow.
So thank you to you all.
Thank you.
Rachel, Noel, Michelle, Joyce, and Miller. We greatly appreciate it because, when you think about, back in the day, keeping the party going, usually it meant that you brought a 30-pack to the party or something like that. So we thank our 30-pack donors to the podcast.
Well, thank you again, donors, for keeping us on the air. And we appreciate you because...
And keeping Carl out of that cardboard box.
Because it does take money to actually produce the show. So, and all of this, all the gear that we use, we're still paying on it.
All of the gear, the subscriptions that we got to make.
Yeah.
All of the money we got to sink into the merchandising, into the marketing of the podcast.
Yeah, even though I said that I paid for most of it, it's actually through loans that I'm still paying through. So... you're actually paying for it. So
loans that Carl took out through the National Bank of Seoul.
Yeah, pretty much. Let's thank Seoul for that. Congratulations, Seoul! Congratulations!
And so today, for our main topic, what we're going to be discussing is that you and I we're going to be the love gurus.
Love gurus. Oh my God!
And so today we're going to be talking about Rez Relationships and Rez Love.
Oh man, I don't even have music that goes great with the love guru stuff. So
you got to find some Brian McKnight or some.
Wow.
And so I know that I'll be the one that's probably going to have to carry the bulk of this conversation, as my co-host Carl has very little to no experience in the love section.
Actually, I do. So you're going to be talking to Dr. Love.
Quote unquote Carl's love experience, as I educated him in our last episode about how to use those air quotes. And so I think today, we really are going to be talking about something a little bit different, because it's going to be going back to what our perceptions of what relationships are on the reservation. I guess some of the dynamics that go behind dating Hopis.
Dating Hopis, yes.
Or dating other natives that aren't Hopi. Or just dating non-natives in general.
I mean, like, it's weird in a way where us Hopis have to date Hopis because, brown people date brown people, right?
I think so.
Yeah, and it's weird how, like, our structure or our mindset is set to that how would you say that? That's set to that certain...
Set to that factory setup, I guess.
Yeah, and it's
Like when
Yeah,
you bring
factory-
a new Hopi baby into the world, it's like an iPhone. They have this factory settings, and part of that factory settings is that date Hopis.
Yeah, and it's weird because my soul, wants me to date a Hopi, but it is very, very hard to find Hopi girls that actually want to date a Hopi man.
Let's help out Carl So'o today. Everybody, I mentioned Carl's phone number in, I believe, the first episode of season 3. Carl is single. He's eligible. No kids. What a catch.
And I mean, it's weird how
Except he's a big dork.
except it's weird in a way where us Hopis feel that we should date Hopis, and I'm not wrong in that section there, because when Soul said date somebody from your own village, it's just saying that it's a tradition to say that we shouldn't be dating other people from outside of the village. It's old way thinking.
So So'o is still set in her factory settings.
So Soul still has factory settings. So
what is a reservation relationship?
So I believe that a reservation relationship is like, you go to her house, you bring a 6-pack over, or you have some good smokes, and you go from there.
You black out and then see what happens the next day.
Strong Ones. Strong Ones is dedicated to exposing cultural traditions of running that exist within many cultures and tribes worldwide through running apparel. Strong Ones is an individually owned business supporting cultural running traditions and supporting local organizations within the Hopi Reservation. They can be found at strongones.myshopify.com. Again, that's strongones.myshopify.com. They are also on Facebook at StrongOnes15.
But yeah, well, I guess that's kind of one perspective of what a Rez relationship is. But I guess if you really take it back and you think about maybe like some of the earlier years, like from junior high school or high school, I did pose the question to our Instagram followers to kind of get some ideas of what is so unique about a Rez relationship. And one of the comments was that on the reservation there's really no dating. Which I think is kind of true.
Yeah, it is. It is true, because I don't think I've ever dated. I just went to a girl and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And next thing you know, her and I are snagging behind the tumtuki.
I don't know if that's true, Carl, but
trust me, it's true. You know who you are, so.
But it really is kind of like that, because in that concept of, I guess, going on dates, dressing up nice and, trying to think of a nice place to take the girl that you're hoping is going to be your girlfriend in the future is really something that here on the reservation you only saw in movies.
Yeah.
Or you only saw it on television, because then when I think back to our earlier years in junior high school, in high school, that really, it just was kind of, the little playful flirting.
Yeah.
You find a girl that you like and you think that likes you, and then you start out with the flirting, and then you start writing notes to each other, and then once you see the little hearts on the notes that they give you, then that's kind of when you're starting to think like, oh man, I think the door's open. I think that, I could swing in there and see if I could get her to be my girlfriend. And then from there, that's kind of when you work the balls up to ask them, will you go out with me?
Have you ever gotten those hand folded little notes and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's strange because I've gotten a bunch of them. I think I still have some of those.
Oh my God, Carl.
Yeah, it's weird because I was looking through. I have the box where all my high school and grade school stuff is, and Soul keeps pretty much everything. And I was looking through that, and I found like a small little hand folded note, and it had a heart on there. In there, it was saying like, hey Carl, what's up? The whole 90s phrase, what's up?
She didn't just write sup.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like that. And she was like, oh, I'm doing fine. How are you? The whole lovey-dovey kind of thing. And I was reading it, and I was like, wow, I was like, wonder where she's at. I wonder who. So I was trying to look her up on Facebook, and she's not on Facebook. So
I'm gonna buy the movie rights to a project that we're gonna call the 40-year-old Hopi Virgin, and it's gonna star the main character. Name will be Carl Bronce.
That's not true. So.
But, really, though, when you do think about, way back then, that really is kind of how it went.
Yeah.
And then once, you secured that relationship, she said yes, she's going to be my girlfriend. Then you could walk around campus holding hands or, walking around campus with your hands in each other's back pocket or whatever else that came with it, the disgusting public displays of affection and, all of that good stuff that, we used to get really hard up about back then. But I think that, what kind of really makes it funny is that we with our Rez slang, with some of the terms that we'd like to use, there were a couple that you heard back then that kind of came up with being in a relationship.
Yeah, there's one saying that if the girl is not wearing your baseball cap, it's not a true relationship. So, or holding your baseball cap in a way.
Wearing an article of clothing that belongs to you.
Yeah.
That's kind of what solidified it.
Oh my God. In high school, I remember in high school, there was a girl that I really liked, and I don't wear baseball caps, but I wear like a sweater, and I gave her the sweater. And
let me guess, it was black.
It was a black sweater, yes. And I gave it to her because she was cold in the classroom, and she wore it. And I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna get married. We're gonna have a lot of kids. I gotta tell Sol, she's gonna probably make biki for me. Not quite to me tonight. And it's strange how your kid mind goes to, and it's like, okay, yeah, she's wearing my jacket. I haven't washed that jacket in months, and she's wearing it,
and she didn't take it off in disgust. She must really like me.
She must really like me. Yeah,
it really is. I think that I guess what makes dating on the reservation different is that we're kind of real goofy about it as kids. We have these different terms and slang, words that we use. One of the words that is kind of a real popular one, not just here on Hopi, and I really think it's something that might come from Navajo, is snag.
Snag, yeah.
There's my snag.
Oh yeah, there's my woman over there.
Where's your snag, Carl?
I usually say, "There's my woman over there,"
or man. For
the
female side, that's my man.
Yeah, there's my man over there.
Where's my man? And then I think for both of us growing up in Tuba City, another term that was used a lot too to describe your woman, and I still don't understand how this term developed, but your wool.
Oh yeah, your wool.
Where's your wool? Check it out, Carl. Your wool.
I remember that. Yeah, all the Navajo guys. Where's your wool at? At first, I didn't understand. I was like, my wool? My sheep?
Like, no, I think my shirt's polyester. I don't think there's any wool.
No, Sol picked, 100% cotton out for me, so. Thank you anyway.
But, I think that the other thing that makes dating on the reservation, or I guess, being in a relationship on the reservation, that really makes the dynamic so unique is this idea of clans.
Yeah.
And then dating around the idea of clans.
Yeah.
And I think that another credit to our Navajo neighbors, something that they made popular is that after 10 p.m. no clans. And so I guess really, the idea behind that is that, when we grow up, that's something that we're all taught. We're all taught the importance of our clanships.
Yeah.
We're taught, who's related to us as a result of the clan that we belong to, or the clan that our fathers belong to. And then also the taboo of dating somebody that's within your own clan or your father's clan.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird in a way, but you're supposed to go out with your gyas, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you have gyas that love you and that's supposed to be your Hopi girlfriend, and you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to love them back, and you can go out with your gyas, pretty much.
That system set up in place, but yet you're still single.
I have some feelers out, so my poster's still probably up. 10 p.m. Call Carl.
And so it really does. It really makes it different because then, you're taught that at a very early age. And then so you kind of, as you're growing up as a child on the reservation, especially, if you're involved with your community, if you're involved with your village, you really do get this good idea, the lay of the landscape of which girls are ones that you need to stay away from. And those girls that belong to the same clan as you develop that gag reflex automatically to think of, if you ever thought of them in any other way than just aside as a sister. And then you kind of recognize who the other girls are that might be eligible one day for you to date as you start growing up. And then I think that what's made it different for us, or even just in general landscape of Hopi, is that when you do eventually make it to school, that you do end up going to school with a lot of folks that's outside of your local community.
Yeah.
And then it begins this whole new filling out process as to try to figure out, okay, who's related to me, who's in this column that I can date, and then who's in this column of girls that I can't date.
Well, if you give a girl a 30-pack, she doesn't really care nowadays, so
what you're saying is 6 clans in, then 6 cans, no clans?
6 cans, no clans. Yeah, pretty much. So, I mean, it's weird because we think in that way, even though we have no bloodline to each other, we still have that clan line to each other.
And we still recognize
and we still recognize
and
that.
we still respect it.
And we still do
or
respect
at least most
that.
of us do.
There are some guys who don't respect that clan, so
some guys that really do live by that life. No clans after 10 p.m. except it's 24/7 with them.
And so when So'o told me about you can't go out with any coyote girl because that's your sister. Mm-hmm. You develop that sense, and that's what J-Man was saying, is that you develop that mindset, that mindset to say that, oh, she's my sister, even though you have no blood relation to that girl.
And she could be, one of the most beautiful people in the village, and you still call her ugly.
And you still call her ugly because she is, your clan. So mindset taken to where that's how Hopis act.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And, I don't think that I've ever had to, had a hard time doing that, because I don't think there are any Corn or Water Clan ladies that are beautiful anyway, so.
All Corn Clan and Water Clan girls are very, very beautiful, so.
Explains why you wear glasses, Carl.
To help me look at them in a beautiful way.
Or, and I guess, one of the things too, one of the easier ways to navigate around this clan thing, and I've heard people, kind of mention it jokingly, but there probably some sincerity in that, is just date a Navajo.
Yeah.
Just date a Navajo, because then, for the most part, at least to our knowledge, there's no clanships within their clanship system that's directly related to any Hopi clans, because for the most part, even though that there are native folks that belong to tribes that aren't Hopi, but if they have a clanship system, and if there are any clans that have an obvious relationship to one of our clans, we'll still consider them a relative, even if they don't belong to our tribe.
Yeah, and it's my sisters, they're on maybe husband 2 or 3 right now, and or boyfriend 5 or 6, and they're just going around and around. I know one of my sisters, she probably listens to this.
Making their laps.
They're making their laps, so I'm hoping for number 2 to come back, because that guy was pretty cool. So number 2, pick him again. We had some good laughs with number 2. So
he was a good guy.
He was a good guy. Yeah. So I know you're on number 5 right now. I mean, that guy, I don't like him because we don't hang out. But number 2 is still pretty cool,
And have you ever dated a non-Hopi before?
Not dated, but just went out, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Is that still considered dating? Or how would you define dating?
Take him to the movies?
Yes, I did
Dinner?
that. Yeah.
Was it exclusive?
No, it was it was non-exclusive.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And so I guess that's kind of how our factory settings are set, is that, we really don't understand what it really means to just date.
Yeah.
Like, where there's a level of or where you can still see other people.
Yeah.
Because I think for us, it's like once you hold somebody's hand, then automatically you're exclusive.
Yeah.
You're like, don't touch this guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Or don't touch my girl, you know what I mean? After just holding hands for a few seconds. And I think that's really how our mentalities are. And so, but I think that, I've dated some Navajo girls.
Yeah.
And, you'll probably hear some nervousness in my voice now to talking to delve into
You know what?
this
I'm
realm.
gonna go ahead and turn down the music because this is getting juicy here. So
Because and I told Carl this before we started recording, but I am from now on moving forward going to refer to my wife as the Rez famous wife, and so the Rez famous wife does listen to our podcast. And so, but I have dated outside of our culture, and it can be exhausting.
yeah,
It can be very exhausting. And I think what makes it exhausting is that the fact that, because we still have a lot of cultural practices
yeah.
that we do speak our language. And so when you bring an outsider into your life, into your Hopi life, that you do have to do a lot of explaining, because then there are a lot of questions, like, what's this ceremony about? What's this ceremony called? How come they dance that way? Or how come, they look the way that they look or dress the way that they dress? What is this person saying in Hopi? And so it's a constant explaining and discussing, trying to explain what's going on basically in the village to, a partner that's not Hopi.
Yeah, I never brought home a foreign girl before, so I don't have that experience in telling that girl, like, this is what they do. So I'm clear of that. So soul made it so.
Speaking of soul, and so at the beginning, you kind of mentioned these expectations that she had for you.
Yeah.
Which is very true for all of us out here on the reservation, whether it's our own parents or our grandparents that have this expectations for their children of what they hope for them to have in a relationship.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that one of the biggest things for Hopi is that, we still have this huge idea that having children is a big part of what should be a part of your life.
Yeah.
And so when you start to think about your children or future children, then you kind of start thinking about what type of life do I want this not born child yet to kind of to have, I guess.
Yeah, and it's how we think as Hopis is that when we do date a Hopi woman, we feel that they're a part of us now. They become a part of you. And when she meets your family for the first time, your whole family is calling her Metwi afterwards. And because you're going out, she brings food to the house, she brings pies or cakes, and it's tradition how Hopi girls do that. When you're going out with a Hopi man, it's tradition that the girl brings something to the family home of the boy, and she helps out with the dishes, she helps out with soul, and it's kind of just cementing that thing to say that I want to be with your son. And the boy does pretty much almost the same thing, except that he brings over like sikwi to the girl's house, and he helps out with the dad, or he helps out compliments the mom. And I guess that's just 1950s kind of thinking. So
it's kind of, I guess, in a way, it's your audition.
Yeah.
It's your audition before the marriage.
Yeah.
That when you're a woman, and I guess that this is, kind of, I guess the warning, if anybody out there who is single and wants to date a Hopi.
Yeah.
Whether a man or a woman, that, these are the expectations still to this day that a lot of families hold for their children if they're going to be in a relationship. If you have young girls and they're going to go out and they're going to have boyfriends, that you want those boyfriends to come over and help chop wood.
Yeah.
Or summertime help down at the cornfields.
Yeah.
To demonstrate their industriousness, to show that they are hard workers.
Yeah.
And that way, that one day in the future, if they do marry your daughter, that they are going to provide that this same type of effort to providing for your child in the same way that they're showing while they're in a relationship with your daughter, and then vice versa if you have boys and they start dating girls, and then to have those girls bring food to your home,
so
to show that they can cook.
So when you were dating, I'm gonna put you on the spot. So when you were dating, did you go to your wife's family home and start chopping wood?
Of course.
We'll ask Wendy when she's back on here.
Oh,
so.
of course. Ask the Rez famous wife. She'll tell you yes.
I'm pretty sure there is moments where you're like, I'd rather just stay inside and
play Xbox. It's funny though, because then it really is. It can be a scary thing.
Yeah.
Because then if you've grown out here on the reservation, everybody knows that kind of each family is one to its own.
Yeah.
And so however your own family does things is probably going to be different than your partner's family.
Yeah.
And how they do things and the type of level of work that they expect. And so I think that for me, even I guess pre the Rez famous wife, when I was out young, single, trying to find that Hopi girl, because it was, I can recall that, being a young man with no wife, no children once upon a time, that it was a goal of mine to be with a Hopi. That's what my heart desired, because I was raised by Hopi parents, both mom and dad. And I saw the type of relationship that they had. I saw the type of reciprocation that they did for one another, and how my father provided for my mother, myself, and my sisters, and in turn how my mother supported my dad, and then all of us kids. And it was something that I always wanted for myself. And so when I was young, and then looking for looking for the Rez famous wife that I didn't know was going to be my wife at the time, that is something that you do look for if you're raised in one of the more traditional homes.
Yeah.
You're looking for a Hopi girl that knows how to make biki. You're looking for a Hopi girl that knows how to make sumiviki, or some of the more traditional foods that we eat. And I think that for some reason, in a way, in your mind, it kind of helps you to know that the woman that you're looking for, if she has these cooking skills, that's a skill that can be provided to your daughter in the future at some point.
And I think it's because of the way that we're brought up, how we do ceremonies, because you and I were big participators in the Hopi ceremonies, and we want to have somebody that will take care of us after the ceremonies,
in the way that we saw.
Yeah, in the way that we saw our parents or our tahas or our family members get. So, and that's the biggest way that's the biggest thing that we as Hopi guys look at, is that if a girl knows how to cook, knows how to do all of these things in the Hopi tradition, then she is good enough for to be married in that way. As part of that, because if she knows a lot about the Hopi traditions and the Hopi values, then that's gold. That's gold to us.
And then I think in our turn too, the fact that if you come from a family that like where you're farming, is a added plus in your Tinder profile.
Yeah.
Or if you come from a family that even raises cattle, could also be something that's a plus in your Tinder profile. And so that's something that, kind of we really use, I guess, as a measurement to kind of demonstrate how, I guess, the hierarchy within the community of where you stand is if you're a farmer as a male, or if you're a hunter as a male, if you're, or even if you do art stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And it's weird because we look at that first rather than we look at that as qualities of the individual. Like, a girl will go out and say that, oh, he has a big field, or, he has a lot of corn. I want that, I want to have that. So, or like, Hopi girls don't look at a guy for their car or for their house or for like all their possessions.
Other things.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, I guess I can overlook the fact that he's an ugly guy. He's got a big cornfield.
I'm not ugly, so.
And it's funny though, because then I kind of understood that was the mentality moving back home, and well, the fact that I was already with my wife, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
But then even something like my degrees kind of feel useless. It's like, well, you don't have a cornfield. You don't know how to make katsina dolls, but I have these degrees. And like,
I have a master's degree on
but I have a master's degree, and you're like, it's not gonna feed my kids.
This paid sponsorship was paid for by Justin Villarreal.
Hey, Tom here with Hopi Relief. Hopi Relief is a nonprofit organization based down here in the valley where we are providing much needed supplies to the Hopi reservation during this COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. Please visit hopirelief.org and find out how you can get involved. Hopi Relief is also an Arizona recognized charitable tax organization. And please visit us December 1st on Giving Tuesday. Thank you.
And I think that's the reason why like Hopi girls are trained in that way, are trained to think in that way, that if they do a lot of stuff with their mothers or their aunties and their gas, they have that mentality of old world thinking, of that factory reset kind of thing, or that factory settings there, still saying that, oh, this is what you're supposed to do as a Hopi girl or as a Hopi woman. And that's what they look for as well, going into the whole world of dating. And if you don't know how to chop wood, or if you don't know how to plant, or if you don't know how to hunt,
then what good are you?
And I know it sounds very, how would you say it? It sounds very old worldish.
Sounds very 1900s.
Yeah, sounds very 1900s. But that's basically how Hopis think still in this 21st century here. So it is still that concept of, if you can provide for my family, or if you can provide for me, then I will be yours.
Speaking of which, to all the Sun Clan ladies, I did kill a deer this year, so the Rez famous wife is being taken care of.
So the deer that he showed was actually just a mouse that was just kind of enlarged on a picture. So,
but I guess we're talking about that factory setting, that that really is how our perspectives are developed growing up here on the reservation, in terms of who we're looking for, or who we're wanting in a partner.
Yeah.
Eventually, whether that's what you have right now, or if that's something that you're hoping for in the future. But what happens when some of our relatives venture off the factory settings, press a couple of buttons, switch things up, and start dating outside of Hopi culture?
And it's weird. It's weird how when they bring home somebody that's not of Hopi, then you're kind of not knowing what to talk about.
And I think it really depends on who they bring home.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing if they bring home another native that's not Hopi. If they bring home a Navajo or an Apache or even a Pueblo person, then it's one thing. But when they bring home the Pahanas or the Sakamkastilas or the Kastilas, that's when things really get interesting within your household.
Yeah, that's when Puamaya turns into a weird festival. So that's not Mardi Gras, okay? So, and it is super weird, but thankfully that I haven't had my sisters bring home somebody of that, Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that they're bad people. I'm just saying that they're not Hopi.
And I guess what makes it more different when whether it's your brothers, your sisters, somebody within the family that's bringing home somebody other than Hopi, but if they're bringing home somebody that's native, then at least in our minds, that native person understands why we do ceremony.
Yeah.
They understand why we pray for rain.
Yeah.
They understand our clanship system.
Yeah.
Or why we have it. But when they're bringing home the white guys or the black guys or the Mexican guys or the Asian guys.
Yeah.
Then, we feel like that there's probably a bigger disconnect in their understandings of what it is that we do on the reservation with our culture, within our ceremonies. And then, I guess it kind of feels like it stands out more.
Yeah.
Or it's more of something that sticks out, and the families probably feel that, it's uncomfortable in a way for some reason, right?
Yeah, it feels uncomfortable, especially when you're trying to explain like this is what the tsikus do to Bahana. So feel welcome over here at our village.
And unfortunately, we kind of do a little bit mean to those folks, and kind of put them in a position to where it sticks out a little bit. But that is a reality that's happening now, that our people are venturing outside of our communities and starting to date other folks other than just Hopis, and for, various reasons.
Yeah.
And because, some of that might be that, they have a certain standard, and that, they don't meet somebody that is upholding those standards that they have for themselves, because you do hear it a lot, that a lot of our women, or even some of our boys, they go off, they get an education, and then they kind of learn a new way of life, I guess.
Yeah.
And then they kind of develop a new expectation of what they want.
Basically, they download a new app, and
they get a new version.
And you get a new version, upgraded version.
And then they start to look for something else. Maybe somebody goes off to get a college education.
Yeah.
And then in turn they want somebody that has a college education. And then they start thinking outside of just beyond having a cornfield, beyond outside of knowing how to chop wood, outside of knowing the language, speaking the language, that they want somebody that can, I guess, provide for them in an economic way on the Pahana side.
Yeah, that is true. And that's how, outside, I'm not saying that outsiders are, they chose to do that, but that's basically how Hopis that go off the reservation, that's basically how they think now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so what do you think are some, I guess, difficulties navigating that type of relationship if you're a Hopi dating a non-Hopi?
Well, for one is that, when you try to take part in certain ceremonies, when you do try to take part in certain ceremonies, it's kind of hard for your significant other to understand that this is what is supposed to be happening. So, and another thing too is like, the whole, I guess you could say, the whole mindset of your parent or your grandparents, and you don't feel comfortable, talking to them about like, oh yeah, she's a pediatrician. Yeah,
she's a neurosurgeon.
Yeah, she's a neurosurgeon at this, and they're like, so she's a doctor, and you're like, yeah, doctor of this thing here, and then you try to explain to her, and you're like, so she's a doctor.
And so does she know how to cook?
Does she know how to cook? And it's like, no, we have a caterer, we take out.
We have a personal chef.
Yeah, and you're like, does she know how to make biki? And you're like, no.
And then it becomes, so she's lazy.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so, I guess it really is difficult for folks that do get that upgrade on their iPhone, and when their family's still stuck in that factory setting, for them to be accepting of who they choose as a partner. But I guess from what I've seen, and with relatives and other folks that have gone off and married outside of Hopi, is that I think that it really becomes more difficult once they have children.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. And there is it, and you actually see that in the community today, is that the children want to be part of Hopi, but yet their mother is not Hopi, or maybe their father is not Hopi, and they don't know the Hopi traditions as far as, because they don't live in the village, or they're not very I guess you could say welcomed in the family.
I've seen the difficulties come on both sides. And so, if you're a Hopi man and you have children with a non-Hopi woman, because we are raised to be believe that we're a matrilineal society.
Yeah.
And so basically what we believe is that you take up what your mother is.
Yeah.
And so if your mother's not Hopi, then, a large part of the community would consider the child to also not be Hopi, but rather be a part of the culture that the mother is.
Yeah.
And so sometimes, you'll have people asking about others, and they'll ask, who's that child?
Yeah.
Who is their parents?
Yeah.
And it'll always start off and they'll say that, so-and-so is their father. And then it always follows ni kyang.
Yeah.
Which means kind of like
but yeah.
Ni kyang tasavut yoita.
Yeah.
Which means they have a Navajo mother.
And
they have a, a mother that's not of Hopi.
Yeah, and they always say something on that various lines. They say that, oh, she's like white, pampahanat yita, that bumabibay pahanam, there, yeah. So,
And so that's the difficulty on the male side. And then on the female side, I think what the difficulties are is that when they have children for a non-Hopi, that even though because they are the female, that their baby is considered Hopi. But I think the difficulties that the women have for their children that don't have Hopi fathers is the obligations that the Hopi male is supposed to fulfill for his own children. And so they're trying to find somebody else to provide what their child needs from what would have been the Hopi husband when they don't end up having a Hopi husband.
So it becomes a very, very difficult situation to say that, oh, this is, this can be your Hopi father to teach you about the Hopi things. So it ends up being your dad or your tahas pretty much taking care of the Hopi male role that a father should be taking care of. So.
Exactly. And so now, in today's, I guess, context is that a lot of our folks, and we've mentioned this before in previous episodes, that a large number of our people now are living off the reservation. And so now they're having more exposures to opportunities to date outside of Hopi, and that's going to be a pretty large norm now. And so that's going to be something that's going to be for future generations to kind of discuss. Because right before we did record this podcast, I was listening to another Native podcast, and they were talking about blood quantum mixed with native romances, because for some people that when you do start dating somebody, basically what the premise of their episode was that when you start to date somebody, that at some point you do look into the future and you do think about, if I have kids with this person, then how will our children come out? Are they going to be Hopi, or are they going to belong to this person's tribe? Or are they going to be welcome into our community if I'm with somebody that's a non-Hopi or a non-native? And so I guess, there's a lot to think about and ponder when you're thinking about, who it is that you're going to be with. And, I think that there are a lot of people that still are set in the factory settings, as we've mentioned, and to where it kind of does make you feel like your children might not belong, depending on who you end up with.
Yeah, and that is true. It is very, very true what J-Man is saying, is that the more that we marry outside of the village or marry outside of our traditions, it's going to be very, very hard for the children to actually pick up or to actually, what is it? How would you say that? To
learn?
No, to further on the Hopi traditions. So... and I think that's the reason why So always wanted me to marry a Hopi, is because to keep the traditions alive, to keep up to who we are as Hopis, and if we don't, then that's lost through the generations, further down the road of generations. So,
I just want Carl to have a girlfriend.
I do have a lot of girlfriends.
As much as I bash on him, he is my guy. So again, ladies, that number is 928. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, the best thing about being single is that you can afford a lot of this cool stuff that you wouldn't afford when you have kids.
When you got kids.
Yeah.
Married with 4 children.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I have a lot of money that I can spend, and I spend it a lot, so...
Well, Carl, I really feel like that, we just kind of hit the tip of the iceberg with this discussion. So here's another potential for another 2-parter episode.
Yeah.
And, maybe even bring on some of the females to get the female perspective on all of this relationship and dating stuff.
So look out for that for part 2 of Hopi dating, Rez style. So,
and it's my goal to get Carl some more experience by then.
So I think it's about that time that we hit the road.
And so before we do that, I'd just like to thank our at-home sponsors, Peace Academy Center, for providing us this beautiful home at Peace Academy Studios. Just like to thank all our supporters again as we move into season 3. You'll hear some more interesting topics from us. At the moment, we are still trying to push out some new merchandise. We're still trying to push out this video project.
Yeah.
That we've been talking about for a while. There was a couple of hang-ups because, Carl and I, we're pretty busy guys.
Yeah, we are
very,
very busy.
Just bullshitting in the studio for about an hour a week, so.
Yeah, so if you want to sponsor us, please do so on anchor.fm/CJ Podcast 85. Go over there, go sponsor us. You can do from $4.99 all the way up to whatever amount you want to do. Sponsor us at that sponsorship level. Or if you want to become a podcast sponsor, email us at cjpodcast85@gmail.com.
And also, too, if you don't follow us already on social media,
Yeah.
you can find us on Facebook at Carl and J-Man, on Instagram at Carl and J-Man _podcast, and you can find us on Twitter at Carl and J-Man. And please, we are also on YouTube. And so if you're listening to us on YouTube, smash the like button, subscribe. If you're listening to us on either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever it is that you listen to your podcast, please give us a 5-star review. You can mention Carl in the comments that if you're available, because Carl is looking right now.
Give me one of those hand-folded notes and and then we'll see.
So anything else before we mob out until next week, Carl?
I want to thank you for all the donors.
Before we go, why don't you tell the ladies, what it is that you like out there? That way, there's somebody, if somebody out there is looking, that they can find some commonalities.
All right, so...
Carl likes cold walks on the edge of the mesa.
Just let down your hair and we can you stand at the edge of the cliff.
You have to know how to braid hair.
I want to thank all of the donors that are sponsoring this episode here and future episodes. I want to thank all the sponsors that are sponsoring the podcast itself. And I want to thank, the studio here that makes it all happen. So thank you again. My name is Carl, and this is my best friend, J-Man.
So long. Quack, quack.